Hey, welcome back to the channel. I am really glad you're here because today I've got some forestry maintenance to take care of. You know, I've often said nature always wins, and it's really true. You know, our beautiful little man-made world is in a constant battle with nature. Mother Nature is always trying to reclaim what's rightfully hers. And even when we live in a beautiful area like this where we really don't disrupt the forest too much, but we make nice walking trails or trails that we can drive through, if we don't constantly maintain that, nature's trying to reclaim it. And that's the case here today. I've got this tree down across this trail. There's another tree that fell over there. And if you don't maintain it, it just goes back to nature. You even see that with an abandoned house. I don't know why, but I love abandoned properties. And I'm just intrigued to see how nature just reclaims. You know, you'll see an abandoned house, and a house that's not lived in and constantly maintained, doesn't take long for it start to go downhill, where nature will either poke a hole in the roof or a window will break and then wildlife takes over. But I mean, it does not take long for nature to reclaim that property. So again, we're in that constant battle. And, you know, I think us and nature can work together. But the fact is, you know, we're always, if we're not maintaining, then we're kind of going backwards. So that's what I've got here today. I've got these couple of trees I need to cut up and get out of my trails. And the good thing is, one of them is a pretty nice oak tree, so that's going to be great for firewood. This one is also oak, but it's pretty, you know, it's pretty spongy on the outside and crumbly, so I'm going to cut it just to make it fit through the trail, because right now this thing is about 15 feet long, and you know, I can't move it with the tractor. So I'm going to cut it into maybe 5-foot sections. Maybe there's a surprise inside. Maybe there's some actual good firewood in here, but I'm not counting on it for this one. But anyway, stick around and we'll cut up some other stuff. Well, ignoring the fact that I always have a dull chainsaw chain, I really need somebody to come up with a foolproof chain sharpener. I've got that steel hand sharpener, which works great, but then the files get dull and it stops working, and I just have never been good at sharpening chainsaw chains. So I just tend to buy new ones pretty cheap, and that's wasteful, I know. But anyway, this is not so bad. You know, you can see it's pretty rotten there, but I think I could split that and get some usable firewood out of that. Again, it's oak, so it's a nice hardwood. Maybe a combination of the fact that my chain is extremely dull and this wood is kind of, it almost seems petrified. But anyway, these are decent little rounds, and I do think as I move along, I'll try and split some up and see what's inside. But over here is the tree that went down that I'm really looking forward to cutting up, because this one has some good wood. Where'd it go? Is it back there? Where'd it go? I lost it. Oh, it's right under the tree that I just cut. Okay. It's this guy. That's only about 5 inches there, but as we go up here, if I clear all this out, I mean, this is beautiful. This had green leaves on it, so it just split and fell. So it's not like a rotten tree or anything. I've got probably, I'll get some 8-inch rounds there, and as we move up, yeah, 8 to 10 inches, which is really nice to handle, you know, when you're manually using a log splitter where you have to lift it up onto the log splitter. So at most, there's probably 10, 12 inches at the base, which is not bad. But this is, I mean, that's beautiful. That's going to be just great. And I will actually get quite a bit of firewood out of just this one piece. All right, that chain is either really dull or that wood is really hard because it's old and dry. So let me try and cut up a piece of this fresh tree and see if it cuts any differently. No, it's pretty dull. Well, as dull as that chain is, I'm going to keep using it. My plan now is to bring the tractor around to that tree that fell, and I'll limb it. And since I have the chipper on the tractor, I'll chip up those limbs in place, and that'll give me a nice working area to cut that tree into rounds. I may put a new chain on for that part. I'll probably try to cut a couple with the chain the way it is. I just really need to be better at sharpening these chains. And I think the trick is, I think you're supposed to sharpen your chain every time you use it. And if you do that lightly and you keep an edge on it, I think it's okay. My problem is I use that chain until it's dull, and then it's a hassle to sharpen. So I'm doing it the wrong way. I'm not a woodsman. I don't do a whole lot of firewood. So maybe I'm a bit lazy in that department. I don't know, but that's just how some of us are. Well, I just got off the phone. I left a message with Woodland Mills because I don't know that these hydraulic shocks are working properly. The WC68 had big springs on there, which were kind of a hassle because they were very, very tight, and it was hard to get certain pieces of wood under that roller, that in-feed roller. And the trick with that usually was you loosen the springs up so that there's hardly any tension at the beginning and more as it opens up. These, however, don't seem to have any pressure on them. If I come over here and lift up the in-feed roller, I could never do that with the springs that were on the other one. So I don't know if that's by design or if they don't have the amount of pressure that they should. So I'm waiting to hear back from Woodland Mills on that. But what I'm finding is that it doesn't have enough pressure to even draw in smaller limbs, because without having a lot of down pressure, that drum kind of skips. And if there's a little bit of resistance, it just spins. But when you have the heavy springs on it, it just kind of forces that limb through. So we'll see what they say about that. Look how nice that is. See how much better it is to clean up your work area first, because I spend so much time tripping over small branches and getting all tangled up. So now I got all those little branches off of here, limbed everything, and this is just a nice, relatively straight piece of oak. And I'll be able to just come along here, mark it, cut it into rounds, and go from there. Now I know some people think my little homemade measuring stick is not necessary, but I like my rounds to be consistently at 16 inches. So I made this out of a piece of PVC pipe and a magnet. I stick it in my bar. I'll go down and I'll mark every 16 inches. And it just makes it really easy. There's no question at all. And I know that I'll have consistent firewood by doing that. I know there's other options like the Mingo marker thing, which I have never used, never seen one work in person. But this, I like it. It just works well. All right, let's see if we can get even one cut out of this dull chain. See, the other nice thing about pre-marking all the cuts is that I can start in the middle if I want, where there's nothing underneath here. I can work my way that way. But if I didn't pre-mark these, I'd have to work just from one side and work my way down. So by having these pre-cut, I can start right here in the middle. Okay. It's torture using that dull chain, so it's got to be torture for you to watch me use that dull chain. So I'm just going to replace it with a new one. This is the chain I bought online at Amazon. KAKEI? I don't even know what it says. Anyway, it had pretty good ratings on Amazon. Fits the chainsaw. You can get all different sizes, and you know, out of the package, they're nice and sharp, and they last a pretty long time to me. I think as long as any factory chain. So I'm going to put that on. I'll leave a link in the description and the comment section in case you want to take a look at these. But they're not bad. Not bad at all. Now let's see what a sharp chain will do along with my LogOx to get this thing up off the ground. Gotta lift it this way so I don't lose my marks. Oh, but the hill wants to go the other way. Let's try this. Oh, that's nice. Oh yeah, that's very nice. Well, as the old song goes, what a difference a chain makes. Isn't that how it goes? Anyway, I got 17 rounds out of that. I'm going to get anywhere from 3 to 6 pieces out of each round. And that was just from a tree that fell over all on its own. And adding that up, I'm thinking I'm going to get probably a face cord of wood out of that. So a third of a cord from this one section of a tree. And that's not even the whole tree. It snapped off about 8 to 10 feet high. Let me show you that. I can cut that down the rest of the way and get another probably 10 rounds out of that. So here's the tree that snapped off. And it's growing up the side of the hill here. But you can see I've got a lot of tree left up there. So if I cut this down, you know, I'll get, like I said, maybe 10, maybe 8 more rounds out of that. Plus, this is the bigger part of the tree because it's the base, which means I'm going to get more pieces out of that. So that could be maybe another, not another face cord, but probably pretty close. So thank you, tree. Thank you for falling down on me. Then if I can get anything out of that dead one that I cut up, that'll just be a bonus, but I'm not counting on that too much. This one though, I mean, this is just really a beautiful tree. I love oak because it splits so nice. It burns well. That's just really pretty. The only problem is I can't burn this until at least next year, maybe the following, but it's good to get a head start on it. Well, that was quite a workout. Luckily, it's not as hot as it has been. It's about 85 degrees today, but earlier in the summer, you know, it was in the upper 90s and it was just impossible to work. So the humidity dropped a little bit. It's going back up next week, but I'm glad to get a little bit of time in to get this taken care of. So free exercise, free heat. I mean, I know it's not free because I'm using equipment to cut it up, but it feels good to be kind of self-sufficient and know that I'm cutting wood on our own land to burn and create heat in our house this winter. So that'll be fun. Now, what I'm going to do next time is come out here with the log splitter. I'll probably have another IBC tote ready. So I'll bring that out, I'll bring the log splitter out, I'll split in place, toss it right in the IBC tote, and haul it out of here. So when that video is ready, you'll see that right here if you're watching on YouTube, which, by the way, if you haven't yet subscribed on YouTube, I invite you to join me. You can also follow on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Thanks for being here. I do appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and as always, I look forward to seeing you next time. Got sweat burning my eye.